good.
I promise.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I double checked, but
Good.
I didn't triple check.
Sweet.
This is Will.
And this is Heather.
And we are going to talk today about, this is part 2 of our making the armor helmet, and we're going to talk about, well, the video is going to show you how we made the shell for our mold. So if you're not familiar with these, the reason these exist is because you could, in theory, make a giant box mold of just silicone for a helmet, but that would be really expensive. So the mold for a helmet is just a kind of a glove mold that's really flexible that you can pull off, but of course you couldn't make a helmet with that because it would be really difficult. So you make this thin shell that goes around your mold and holds it in place. So then when you're slush casting and everything, then your helmet stays helmet shaped with fewer materials and it's not as heavy as a giant block of silicone. One thing I wanted to point out real quick that you need to be aware of when you're making molds and shells that we actually almost missed. So you'll see it wasn't in the first video and then it magically appears in this video, but on the horns we realized as we were doing this that if we left both of the horns as is, like that it would be impossible once we had a helmet in here to get the shell off. Oops. But we realized that in time to add it. To work around it. So we added this glob of extra silicone around the one horn to make it flat. And so what we can do is this half, when we demold the helmet, pulls off laterally, and then that allows this one to come off around the horn.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out in case you're wondering where all that extra glob came, and as a reminder to watch out for things that might lock your mold. It happens, mistakes happen. Luckily we caught that one before it was too late.
Sweet.
So we're gonna do the video. Oh, and if you didn't see, we gotta give one of these to Emily Swallow, who's the armorer.
Which was super badass.
We'll put some pictures on here or something so you can see it. See you later. The first thing you always want to do with anything mold related is release. So for this, just a coat of Vaseline with a chip brush is really all you need before you do the Plasti-Paste. So because your shell is going to be 2 halves, first you want to do 1 half, and you want to get a nice even coat on everything. One thing that we did a little differently that you'll see, and this was something that we learned from our friend Alan, is instead of putting a wall in place at first, we just do the first half all nice and rounded, then we'll build a wall with clay because clay doesn't stick to silicone very well. Do the other half, take the clay out, and then do the other half of the wall. So we actually do it in 3 coats technically instead of just 2, but it does help get a nice wall with registration keys between the 2 halves. You definitely want to make sure you get in all the undercuts and everything, and you want to try to make it as smooth and evened out as possible. You don't want a bunch of air bubbles and things, and you want to make sure there is good even coverage touching all the rubber so that it holds it properly in place when you're done. One thing with Plasti-Paste too to be careful of is once it cures and it's hard, and all those little wisps you see poking up become like little daggers. Like, think puppy teeth. So just smooth it out. So we kind of skipped a step here. We did most of the clay wall off camera. You will notice that the extra silicone on the one horn there that we mentioned in the intro suddenly appeared there, as we promised it would. Once you have your clay wall up there, you want to, again, put Vaseline on the clay, and then go for your second coat on the second half and make the second half of your shell. So we mix up the Plasti-Paste again, and it is just the exact same process. Coat everything, try to get as even and smooth a coverage as possible, no air bubbles, get all of the rubber covered, all up on the clay on your registration keys. That's what those lumps are. That's where is going to be where the 2 halves end up fitting together. We also went back over and did some touch-ups on the first half where we wanted to smooth and fill in some stuff. You can see on the horn it didn't quite get good coverage, so we'll go and get that too. And you want to make sure though you don't put anything on both sides that's touching at this point, because you don't want to seal anything in. So a little bit of touch-ups, and then once everything is kind of all covered, again, smoothing everything out is pretty important because you don't want those really sharp edges. You can always Dremel stuff later. We did a little bit of that. You can also use acetone as it's curing to kind of smooth things out. It does get very sticky very quickly. So one of my kind of little tricks is you just kind of pat it with your gloves, just really quickly, kind of all over to smooth stuff out. It will try to stick to your gloves, so you gotta kind of move quickly and just get it all nice and smoothed out. I use the back of my fingers and the back of my hand a little bit. Just kind of tap it all down, get rid of those really sharp, pointy parts that might stab you later. Once that's cured, you want to just tear down that clay wall. Does that sound Reagan enough? Anyway, then you want to put Vaseline just on the wall on the second half. You don't want any Vaseline on the first half of the mold because you're going to put more Plasti-Pastell in there and you want it to stick to the first half of the mold. So you want to try to get it just on the wall, not on the actual surface of the first half. And then you're going to go in there and fill in all that space. That'll give you a wall on the first half plus the other half, the matching half of all the registration keys on the mold. That wall is where you'll see later. We're going to go and drill holes to put screws and bolts and nuts through. That'll hold it together later when we're actually casting it. So again, same process. A lot of these things you might have noticed, realized by now, very repetitive. But that's okay because we love doing it, and the more you do things, the better you get. So now we get to crack it open. This is what I like to refer to again as Schrodinger's mold, because at this point we have done all this work, the last video and this video worth of work, and we have no idea if it's actually going to work or not. But with a little bit of prying, voila, success! The mold jacket came off perfectly. And we are almost ready to demold the master. So this step is one that I hadn't thought about. Again, thank you to Alan for giving us the heads up on this before we did it. So when you do the rubber, when your helmet's right side up, it obviously all drips down. So those little drippy things are. What that doesn't do for you is give you a nice lip inside your helmet to actually give you a bottom of your helmet when you're doing slush casting. So we mixed up a little bit of Rebound and we just coated all around the bottom lip of the helmet. That'll give us a nice lip so that when we're slush casting, one, the helmet will have a nice bottom on it, but two, we won't make a giant mess. Trust me, we made plenty of mess making helmets, but at least not as big of a mess as if we hadn't done this part. You will not get to see the mess we made doing our first helmet though, because this angle and trying to video slush casting a helmet, guess what? Doesn't work. We will be doing a live stream at some point though where we slush cast a helmet for you and talk to you while we do it. So final step before we really know whether this was successful, we have to drill those holes I mentioned all around the wall of the shell for the nuts and bolts to hold everything together, because again, you don't want to have to manually hold things together exactly right while you're actually slush casting a helmet. That would be a lot of extra work and probably not work out very well. So we opted for 6 thumb screws because we thought thumb screws would make it easier to put these in and out. We were wrong. So while you see these thumb screws in this video, we ended up changing those out for Phillips head screws because we could just use the drill to take them in and out. Way easier. Do that. And now the moment of truth. Drum roll. Okay, no drum roll. Sorry if no drum roll disappointed anybody. But what you want to do is just kind of go around, wiggle it out, loosen it up. You could pretty much do this one person if you needed to, but since there's 2 of us, we figured we'd do it the easy way. and make sure we didn't mess up the master in case we need to do this all over.
Okay, so you watched that, and now you know how to do this, and that is the end of our series on how to make a helmet mold. It's a little sloppy. We'll do a nicer one next time.
Yeah, we'll be a lot cleaner on our next pass.
Are you going to take the helmet off before the video ends?
No,
Why not?
because this is the way.
Okay, that's fair. Also, hammer. Coming soon. It's very soft right now.
It is. It's like silky smooth.
Yep, it's going under rubber soon.
Sweet.
Alright, see you guys next time.